Hi everyone, and welcome to another edition of Get Out of Your Own Way. Have you ever walked into a place or a room and felt the hairs go up in the back of your neck? You know something's wrong, but you're not sure why. Or perhaps you've met somebody for the first time and you've shaken their hands and you've known immediately that you can trust that person. Or perhaps you've had to make a quick decision and you've used your gut. I'm talking about, of course, our intuition. In this video, what I would like to do is talk about what intuition is, why it's important in our lives and how we can nurture it, and also how we can get in touch with it, or more in touch with it if it's something that you're familiar with. So what is intuition? Now, simply put, it's our inner guidance, our inner teacher. It's about acquiring knowledge without analytical reasoning. And it gives us guidance, whether it be a warning or just a hesitation or an impulse, but it's useful information, and it arrives as a whisper, a gentle voice, or a thought, or an image, and it's often accompanied with a physical sensation. So a gut feel, for instance, or in our chest, or in the back of our neck, as we were talking about earlier, our hairs raising on the back of our neck, or even on our arms. And it could be a manifestation elsewhere in the body. And it depends on you as an individual. And it could be a combination of all of those. But intuition, it's such a gentle little voice. And what it's trying to tell us is how we could do something, okay? Giving us a choice. This is really very different to that loud inner voice that we have, sometimes called the ego, which is trying to tell us what we should do. It's giving the appearance that you don't have a choice. If you want to know more about the loud inner voice, have a look at my video about inner critic that talks about the inner voice in some detail. But back to our intuition, because it is so gentle and quiet, and sometimes it's difficult to understand what message it's trying to give over, it can be missed. So why is intuition so important? Let's start by looking at successful people. Successful people often talk about their intuition being a fundamental part of their success. I've got a list here of people who mention their intuition. Mozart talked about his inspiration from within. Socrates was guided by his inner voice. Einstein, Marconi, Henry Ford, Luther Burbank, Madame Curie, to name a few, and these are guys who are Nobel laureates, all attributed their success to their intuition. So it's worth looking up also the famous film director Steven Spielberg. He talks about his intuition a lot on the internet. There's lots of speeches he makes about it and attributes his creativity that comes deeply from his intuition. So let's move on now and talk about why intuition is so important in specific terms, what it actually helps here. And we'll look at on this chart here. So it helps us to be much more creative. As Spielberg was talking about, it's helped him with his creativity. More productive and achieve more when you're more intuitive. Better intuitive healing power, so you can actually mentally heal yourself better when you're in touch with your intuition. Less fear and stress, so you're stopping the overthinking. And this, I think, is a curious one, that empathetic accuracy, so you're more in touch with people, more attuned to them and being able to mind read them, so you're able to read their body language and what they're saying and their emotions. Helps us to be much more magnetic towards positive people, situations and opportunities. It opens up your world so that you're attuned to that sort of thing. This is all about authenticity. This is about getting in touch with your soul, and therefore intuition is a vital part of being able to get us in touch with our authenticity. It helps us with decision making, to have a gut feel about which way to go. And ultimately, it's about making us happier and more fulfilled. So another person I'd like to introduce you to is a person called Sonia Choquette. She's an intuition guru and spiritual mentor, I think is what she terms herself. There's plenty of stuff on the internet about her, and she's very interesting about intuition in particular. She talks about there being two sets of people in terms of intuition. The first set of people she talks about are I'm going to put up on this chart here is fifth sensory humans. So a fifth sensory human will look at the world through their ego brain. They live in a sense of fear and are worried about pleasing the people around them. Someone who is fifth sensory views the world as everything being you versus me. They second guess themselves. They are not authentic selves, and they often feel isolated and disconnected. So many people today live fifth sensory lives. And the second set of people, you probably guessed what she calls them, that being fifth sensory humans. The second set of people she talks about being sixth sensory humans, presumably a play on the word sixth sense, which is obviously another word for intuition. Sixth sensory humans, on the other hand, have activated their intuition. They understand themselves more and understand that they are more than an ego. They have opened up the entirely new world of awareness and creativity. Most importantly, they are more connected to others and to the world around them, both physically and spiritually. So I myself am very much trying to move towards more sixth sensory human beings to get the benefits of being that more authentic and more in touch with myself. So the final part of the video I want to talk about today is how we actually get in touch with our intuition if we want to get more in touch with it. And I'm going to start with the 4 steps that Sonia Choquette actually suggests, and I'll put them up here on a chart for you to follow as well. So she talks about this idea, the first thing you need to be is actually be open to it. Not many people are actually open to their intuition. They haven't turned the radio on to receive the radio waves, the waves that we require to bring our intuition to us. The second step is about expecting your intuition to actually inform you, allowing it to be involved. Get yourself, create space in your consciousness for that feeling and sense to occur. And then check in with your senses. How's it manifesting in you? Is it a gut feel? Is it a chest? Is it hairs on the back of your neck? Whatever it might be. How does it work for you? And then you can recognize when your intuition is giving you a message. Trust it. You need to build a relationship with it. She talks about this idea of writing it down. So when anything comes in, a hunch, a nudge, or whatever it might be, write it down so you don't lose it, because it's so fleeting, and then your analytical brain kicks in and stops the intuition and takes its power away. So write it down, but obviously life's life. We don't often have a pen with it. She says the second best thing you can do is actually say it out loud. Obviously, these days, you actually on smartwatches, you can record your little thoughts. So it's worth doing that if that's something that appeals to you, or a smart speaker even. The 4th step she talks about is actually act on it. If you don't act upon it, you lose it. So it's about following that vibe, following that instinct. Whatever the nudge was, is to actually follow it. If it says turn right, go right. If you walk into a room and it feels odd, leave the room. It's just acting upon your intuition. And the more you act upon it, the more it'll come to you. A little story I've got about acting on my intuition happened to me actually only a couple of days ago. I went to visit an elderly aunt in hospital who's not very well, and I went in the car, and the car parking around hospitals, as many as you'll know, is extremely difficult. And I went into this car park on hope rather than any expectation. Went around the car park, there's only about 20 spaces anyway, and sure enough, all the spaces were full. And I left and I started going out, and then just in the corner of my eye, I caught somebody just hovering around a car. And I thought to myself, well, I wonder if, and then I immediately just thought to myself, oh no, forget it. I'm sure she's just arrived. And I carried on. And I stopped myself. And I thought, no, I'm going to follow this through. Put the car into reverse, reversed back, and just as I got to the car park, sure enough, she was leaving, and she came in up past me. Not only that, she opened the window and handed me her parking ticket, so I didn't have to pay for the ticket as well, which was a nice bonus for the day. But there's an example of acting on your intuition. Okay, so here are final chart I want to share with you is some examples or structures of how you can get in touch with your intuition, as well as Sonia's 4 steps. Here are some ideas that might appeal to you and worth having a look at. So again, on the chart here to give us some more clarity. Being quiet and solitary can be very good for people to get in touch with them. They talk about anecdotes of doing that. Meditation, mindfulness, and being present is a really good way to understand what's going on for you and your intuition, inviting your intuition in. Talking to yourself can be a very good way of allowing it to come in. I wonder if, and this is a Sonia thing. I just stopped myself there because I remember I said that in the that car parking thing in the hospital, didn't I? I said, I wonder if. And this is where your intuition can come in, and that's how you can help yourself to act upon it. Love it. Listen to your body. Where do you hold that feeling? In Sonia's third step, she talks about that. Traveling can be a really good place where you're very quiet and on your own, and you can get it. I particularly very creative in those particular spaces when I'm traveling on a train or something like that. And Spielberg talks about his most creative time is in his car when he's traveling alone. In the bath or shower, Einstein, that's where he got his best ideas, in the shower, sometimes in the loo, maybe. Listening to the little voice and that feeling, of course. Another time can be running. I've got a friend of mine who sets himself an objective at the start of his run and lets his intuition run wild. And by the end of it, that objective is solved. He's got new thoughts and areas that he can work on. And we're moving a little bit into more about subconscious and mixed in with our intuition. But I love this idea of letting go. So Brendan McCallum is he was the ex-cricket captain of New Zealand. I love cricket. And he was the godfather of making cricket into a sport that was really watchable and brought to the masses because he made people play fearless cricket. They smashed the ball, and he's taken the scores way up there, so it's made it much more interesting for people to watch the game. And he's talking about how he practices, and he says he goes into the nets and he gets people to throw tennis balls at him randomly as fast as they can, and all he does is just clear his mind and just try and hit the ball. Because he's got the skills, he's got all the technique. All he needs to do is just clear his mind and just let his subconscious run. And that's his intuitive, his instinct coming out of him. I like that idea. Ask your partner. So this is about asking your partner, your intuition, your subconscious for help at night. Night is a really good time to get in touch with what's going on below the surface, and this can be a good place to do it. Asking yourself questions at bedtime can be a very good thing. So you incubate overnight and you let your subconscious come up with a solution in the afternoon. But of course, when you wake up, you need to get those ideas down before an analytical brain kicks in and starts messing with your thoughts. Dreams are so powerful and a really good way of getting in touch with your intuition. Banting, who invented insulin, he found it from a dream. Howe, who fascinating dream he had about the sewing machine. He invented the sewing machine, and he was having real problems with working out how the needle worked. You know, it's a strange little hook that in a sewing machine. And he had a dream about being chased by a tribe of Indians, I guess, in a rainforest. And at the end of the spears, he noticed that the end of the spears, the hooks were really weird shape. And of course, that was the shape that he used eventually for his sewing machine. And Watson, who invented DNA, was really struggling with how DNA actually fixed together. He just could not get the answer for this. And he had a dream one night about snakes entwining together into a helix sort of pattern. And he woke up in the morning, and guess what he asked himself? I wonder if that's the answer. Sure enough, that's how he invented how the molecule of DNA came to be. So those are just some examples and some structures, can be called, that can help you to get in touch with your intuition and become more sixth sensory. So that's it. We're drawing to a close now this video. We've talked about what intuition is, why it's so important to have in our lives, to nurture our intuition, and how to get more in touch with it. So I hope you've enjoyed it. Thank you for listening and watching. Please do pass it on to your friends if you think it would be of help to them. And do have a look at my other videos, which are on my website. Thank you and goodbye.